Nobody saw the work you did last Tuesday. You woke up before you had to. You prepared for something that wasn't scheduled. You showed up when staying home would have been completely invisible. And then the silence came. The particular kind of silence that follows real effort with no audience. Something shifted in that silence. A quiet, precise thought. What is the point? Not the dramatic kind of giving up. Just the smaller kind. The kind that doesn't announce itself. It shows up as a slightly shorter effort the next morning. An easier reason to stop. A step skipped because no one was watching closely enough to notice the difference. Here is what you never say out loud, but what you already know is true. You need to be seen, not as vanity, as confirmation. You need proof that the effort registered somewhere in someone else's awareness before the effort starts to feel real. Without it, the work begins to feel like noise. The modern mind was built for this. We have been conditioned by everything around us, every metric, every notification, every counter that ticks upward, to believe that effort without an audience is effort that doesn't count. That discipline practiced in private is not really discipline. That the work only becomes real the moment someone else confirms it exists. And the worst part? You know this about yourself. Which makes the silence feel not just empty, but like a verdict. So here is the question that hurts. If the discipline is real, why does the silence feel like punishment? And if the silence is punishment, was it ever really discipline at all? There is an insect alive right now, somewhere beneath your feet, carrying a fragment of leaf 3 times the size of its own head. It cannot eat that leaf, it never will. The leafcutter ant spends its entire existence harvesting material it will never consume, transporting it underground, through tunnels it cannot see, toward a fungus garden it has never witnessed from above. The colony below contains 8 million workers. No manager, no reward system, no record of who carried the most. This colony has been operating this way for approximately 50 million years. The engineering inside a single chamber rivals the climate control systems of modern buildings, ventilation architecture, waste removal corridors, temperature-regulated agricultural galleries, all of it built and maintained by creatures with a brain smaller than a grain of sand. Could this be an accident? The leafcutter ant arrived in this world precisely equipped, specifically deliberately equipped, with something you were not, a psychology that contains no mechanism for requiring applause. That absence is not a deficiency. That absence is the design. What the ant does with that design is going to change how you understand your own silence. Lesson 1. The ant works in the dark. A leafcutter ant navigates entirely by chemical signals. It has no visual reference for its destination. It cannot see where it is going. It cannot confirm that progress is real. It works in literal, absolute, light-absent darkness. And it never stops to wonder whether the work is visible. Could this be an accident? Think about what you actually require before you begin. You need enough clarity, enough certainty that the effort will register somewhere. You need the conditions to look promising before you commit fully. Some evidence that it's working before you go deeper. You are waiting for the light before you move. The ant was built to move first and let the tunnel reveal itself 1 millimeter at a time. What would you finish if you stopped waiting for the conditions to be visible? Lesson 2. The ant carries without keeping score. A single leafcutter worker carries up to 50 times its own body weight. Scaled to your frame, that is the equivalent of carrying a small car for miles through unmarked terrain, underground, with no GPS, no path, and no one watching the clock. And here is what makes this extraordinary. The ant does not do this for recognition. There is no hierarchy of effort inside the colony. No ant has ever stopped mid-trail to wonder whether its contribution was acknowledged. There is no mechanism for that question to even form. The invisible work is not sacrifice. The invisible work is the structure. Every empire that lasted, every cathedral that still stands, every infrastructure that fed a civilization for centuries was built first underground, in silence, by labor that no one saw arriving and no one thought to commemorate. True compounding growth is always invisible before it becomes undeniable. What load are you leaving on the ground because no one has acknowledged how heavy it is? Lesson 3. The ant has no failure memory. Leafcutter foragers fail more than 50% of the time. They return to the colony with nothing. Wrong fragment, wrong path, wrong timing. They go back out immediately. No pause to process the failure. No recalibration of self-worth. No reduced effort on the following trip. The empty-handed return registers as data, not as identity. The ant does not erase failure. It just does not install failure as identity. You do the opposite. You carry every failed draft, every rejected attempt, every effort that wasn't met with the response you needed, and you install it. You let it become part of the architecture of what you believe you are capable of. The empty trip home becomes evidence. Evidence becomes conclusion. Conclusion becomes the story you tell yourself before you decide whether to go back out. The ant was not built to do that. It was built to treat the empty trip as information, retrieve that information and return. What would you attempt again tomorrow if you stopped bringing today's empty trip home with you? Lesson 4. The ant guards what it grows. The fungus garden inside a leafcutter colony is one of the most sophisticated agricultural systems on Earth. The ants cultivate it, prune it, feed it, and actively protect it. A specialized cast of workers produces antifungal secretions and patrols the gardens continuously, removing any foreign matter that might introduce contamination. They do not only build, they guard. This was engineered into the system from the beginning. Anything worth cultivating will also attract infection. The more deliberate the growth, the more reliably something will appear to compromise it. Your most important work functions exactly the same way. The closer you get to something real, a creative direction, a disciplined practice, a focused commitment, the more reliably things will arrive to enter it. Urgency that isn't yours, opinions dressed as concern, noise that presents itself as opportunity. The ant does not let every leaf into the garden. It decides what enters. What are you allowing near the thing you claim matters most? Lesson 5. The ant's most dangerous workers are its oldest. Here is the part that most people miss. As worker ants age inside a leafcutter colony, they are gradually reassigned. Younger ants are given protected interior work, processing, farming, tending the brood deep underground where the risk is minimal. The oldest workers, the ones closest to the end of their biological cycle, are assigned to the most exposed task the colony has: outdoor foraging, the most dangerous job, the one with the highest failure rate, the one with the most contact with the unknown. The oldest ants take the most risk. Biologists call this terminal investment, the strategy of increasing expenditure as time runs short, because there is less to protect and more to give. The oldest ants are not diminishing, they are accelerating. And somewhere right now you are postponing the most exposed, most important, most dangerous work of your life, waiting until you feel ready, waiting until conditions are safer, waiting until you have more to show before you risk more. Building the case for why now is not quite the right time. The ant was designed to do exactly the opposite. What if your most vital work is not behind you, but in front of you, waiting for you to stop protecting yourself from it? These aren't 5 lessons, they're 1. Work in the dark, carry without keeping score, release the failure, guard what you grow, risk more as time shortens. These are not separate strategies. They are a single architecture, the internal structure of a system built to outlast everything around it. The ant colony does not persist for 50 million years because its workers are exceptional. It persists because each worker is oriented entirely toward the work itself, with no internal circuitry that requires an audience to continue. Seen work tempts performance. Unseen work reveals structure. The work is enough. The work is the point. But here is where you differ from the ant, and this is the only thing that matters. The ant had no choice. It arrived in this world precisely equipped to work without applause. It cannot do otherwise. That is its design. You were not. You were given the one thing the ant was never given, the capacity to choose this, the ability to deliberately rewire the part of you that requires confirmation, day by day, step by step in the dark, where no one is watching and the work gets done anyway. Every day you postpone that choice. Every day you require the light before you move. You spend something you cannot recover. Not motivation, not confidence, time. Discipline is not a performance. It is an act of structural integrity. You do the work because you are the work. The ant does not ask who will see the tunnel. It builds the tunnel. Socratic question, silence after. A system this precise, operating at this scale for this long without a single audience, designed by chance or designed? And if designed, what exactly were you built to do? Somewhere underground right now in total darkness, a leafcutter ant is carrying something it will never eat, toward a garden it will never see finished. No record of it. No witness, the work continues, it always has.